Welcome back to my kitchen. So I see some of you are baking some amazing breads. It's awesome. Told you it was easy. Today I'm going to do a really quick, simple biscuit recipe. They're scrumptious, they're easy, and they don't require yeast, because I know a lot of you are having issues right now trying to find yeast. It's gone. There are no yeast supplies to be had for some reason. I'm just lucky because I have a little bit on hand, and anyone who has some is pretty lucky. So today we're just going to do a simple biscuit recipe, and it does not require yeast. So you're going to need 2 cups of flour, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, a tablespoon of sugar, a teaspoon of salt, 6 tablespoons of butter. Now your butter needs to be really cold, preferably frozen. So you may want to just grate it or cut it up in little chunks, put it in the freezer about 20 minutes before we start this recipe. 3/4 of a cup of milk. That's it. Again, everything's pretty basic. You just need a bowl. You need some measuring spoons to measure out your ingredients. Handy dandy trusty wooden spoon. I use a pastry cutter. If you don't have one, everybody has a fork and everybody has a couple knives. So I'll show you how to use those when we get to it. So basically what we're going to do right now is just going to add our dry ingredients into our mixing bowl. So I've got 2 cups of flour. Oh, and before I forget, preheat your oven to 425 degrees and line a baking sheet with parchment paper if you have the parchment paper. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. Just use your baking sheet. So 2 cups of flour going in. We have a teaspoon of salt going into that. We have a tablespoon of sugar into that, and a tablespoon of baking powder. So we've got all our dry ingredients in there right now. Just give it a quick mix. Just kind of incorporate everything in the bowl. And if you really want to get creative, you can always add something like some dried herbs. You can leave your biscuits plain. For our dinner tonight, I'm just going to add some Italian spice. So it's about 3/4 of a tablespoon of Italian spice. And I'm going to give that a mix around. You certainly don't have to add anything to them. They are absolutely delicious left on their own. So we've mixed this. We have preheated our oven. We've got our cookie sheet ready. So what we want to do now is we want to take our butter out of the freezer, so just hold tight. My butter's been in the freezer for about 20 minutes, and it's nice and cold and hard. The thing is, when you're making biscuits and you want those nice flaky bits in your mouth, cold butter is going to do that. So the colder your butter is when you're adding it to here, the better your flakiness is going to be in your biscuit. And yes, I've scrubbed my hands prior to doing this. So we're just going to take our butter. We don't want to handle the butter too much because we don't want our hands to actually melt the butter. So put it in there. Give it a good mix. Now because I've grated my butter, I don't really have to take a pastry cutter and cut into it. You can if you want smaller bits. So you can take your pastry cutter and work it around. If you don't have a pastry cutter, it's quite simple. You've got a fork. Everybody has a fork. So you just take your fork, you take your mixture, and you're just going to beat it. And you're going to see that your butter will eventually succumb to the fork and go into smaller little chunks. If you don't want to use a fork, these are old-time pastry cutters. So all you're going to do is crisscross these inside your mixture. And when it hits the butter, it will actually cut up that frozen butter beautifully. So again, it's just a crisscross action with your knives. It's quite easy. So I'm just going to get this out of our way. I'm also going to add a little bit of cheese to mine because I want to do some cheese Italian herb biscuits. So again, cheese is kept in the fridge, and I've got about 1/2 cup. It's just grated cheese. Nothing fancy, whatever I had in the fridge. If you have blue cheese, cheddar cheese, whatever kind of cheese you like, you can add it. It truly doesn't matter. It's whatever your family's going to enjoy. So again, I'm just going to give all that a bit of a mix. So everything's incorporated well in my bowl. I have got 3/4 of a cup of milk. I'm going to add that to the center of my flour mixture. And now I'm going to start mixing, but I'm going to start mixing carefully because you really don't want to overwork this. The more you play and work with this, the less flaky and light your biscuits are going to be. So you really just want to kind of mix things in gently. No crazy rapid stirring here. Just try and incorporate. I hope everybody saw that. It's going to be a shaggy dough. Okay, and you're going to get to a point where your spoon's probably not going to cut it anymore, and you are going to have to get your hands in there. So, this is what my dough is looking like. It's a big shaggy mess at this point. I have a little bit of extra flour here that I'm going to use to flour my surface, my counter. And I'm going to take this dough, and this is where I have to get my hands in here. So I am going to try and combine it a little bit with my hands, but again, I don't want my hands melting all that beautiful cold butter that's in there. Work it around. Okay, so here's where you have to use your judgment. So mine is coming together, but not like I want it. So I'm going to add a little bit more milk in here. And I mean a little bit, like a tablespoon. And we're going to just see if that's enough. Okay, it did make a huge difference. Just a little bit goes a long way. So this dough, you're not going to need rolling pins. You're not going to need anything fancy for this. We're going to use our hands. So even though my dough is coming together, it's kind of a wonky day today. It's cold, it's damp. I'm going to add a little bit more milk because apparently the atmosphere is not cooperating on these biscuits today. Some things the atmosphere makes a difference on, some things it doesn't. Today apparently it's making a difference on the biscuits. We are in the middle of a huge thunderstorm here, so perhaps that's the reason things are so wonky right now. Okay, so here's what I've got. It's a shaggy dough. It is a little bit sticky because I did add just another tablespoon of milk. It's okay. We're going to make sure our counter's floured. You don't want to use a rolling pin. You're just going to push this out with your hands on your surface. I'm just going to get rid of this bowl out of our way. And the whole thing is here now, we want to start creating layers. So we're going to go about an inch thick, I guess, a little bit less. Doesn't have to be perfect. And we're going to take it and we're going to fold it over. So fold it in half, and we're going to give it a 90-degree turn, and we're going to fold it again in half. And we're going to turn it, push it down. Again, using our hands, we don't need a rolling pin. See, mine's not a perfect shape. It is what it is. We're going to fold that shape in half. Again, pushing it down, trying to work it so that it's a little thinner. And all we're doing by folding it and working it out is creating layers inside the pastry dough. Or I shouldn't say pastry dough, inside your biscuit dough. So we're going to fold this again. Starting to stick on my counter, so I'm just going to move my flour around. And at this point, I don't really want to work my dough too much because my hands are really warm right now. So it will melt everything inside of there. You can give it another couple folds. There's no hard or fast rules to this. So it's whatever you're comfortable with. I'm comfortable with what we've done. Remember, they're just a quick biscuit that your family can enjoy for dinner, lunch, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to spread this out with my hands to about a little less than 1 inch thick. You can use a cookie cutter if you have a round one, if you have a fancy one, whatever you want to use. Here's what I'm going to use. A glass. Now be careful with this because you don't want to push too hard and you don't want to get glass fragments in anything. But if you have a glass that has no chips or anything in it, you should be okay. I'm just going to dip it in my flour, just to kind of flour the edge of it, and it becomes my cookie cutter. Biscuit cutter, sorry. So we're just going to cut rounds from this dough. If something's a little too thick, smush it down. You may have to reflour the edge of your glass. I don't ever remember my nan using anything but a glass when she was cutting biscuits or cookies. There were no fancy cookie cutters back then that people could afford, so they used what they had. You see, that one's a little wonky, but it's going to be okay. So we take what you've just cut out, and we are going to just kind of rework this. Again, you don't want to work this too much. We're going to flatten it. Nothing but goodness. That's what's in them. And again, we're going to cut. And it's okay. See how we don't have a perfect smooth surface on here? That's okay. When they're baked, it's not going to matter. You can use whatever size cutter you want. Again, I do recommend if you have a metal cutter of some sort, then use it. But if you don't, the alternatives are easy. So, take our dough that's left again, and we're just going to little flour on the counter. Again, push it down. Okay. Everybody's going to be different in the amount of biscuits they get out of this because everybody is going to cut them to a different size. Again, it doesn't matter if you get 6 or if you get 12. Okay, so we're just about done cutting. I have a little bit left. I know it's not going to be enough to cut with my improvised cookie cutter or biscuit cutter. So I'm just going to take it, flatten it into a little biscuit here, and that's that. So we will put these on our baking sheet. Again, if you have parchment, that's great. If you don't sweat it. I like to keep them maybe 1 inch or so apart because these things are going to grow. And we will get these in the oven, 475, for about 12 minutes, or until they are golden brown on the top, or starting to get golden brown on the top. I'm going to put them in my oven, and I will be back to show you the finished product. So beautiful things are happening here in my oven. Hold tight. Oh, I wish you could smell what it smells like in here right now. They're far from perfect because they rose so high they actually toppled over, which is great because it means we got so many beautiful layers, and those quick folds that we did was amazing. They don't have to be perfect, remember? They're for our families. It's the taste that we want. Here's what we're looking at for some beautiful biscuits. Did get one perfect one. Really, these are going to be amazing. I don't even think they need butter. Let's see. Okay, ready? Look at these beautiful layers. Okay, wait, so hot. Oh. Look at this absolutely beautiful, beautiful biscuit. Ah, my fingers. You don't even need butter on these. These are going to be amazing. You can put a little bit of butter, brush it, melted butter on the top if you want. I'm not going to do that because there is enough butter in these that I don't want to add more. But if you're the type of person who can't get enough butter, then just put a little bit of melted butter on the tops of them when they come fresh out of the oven like this. These are absolutely beautiful, amazing. Again, things don't have to be perfect. It's the love you put into it. It's basic ingredients. It's not out of a box. Really, you can do this and your family is going to love it. So, get your biscuits going. Can't wait to see what you guys create. And thanks for coming to my kitchen.